Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 9. So we're in the midst, or towards the beginning, I guess, of the longest break we'll have in this ninth and final season of The Flash, but luckily it's also the last one for the season and I guess the show as a whole. But the episode that we'll be coming back with and returning with, and whatever other word you want to use, that being episode 9, will feature the returns of Oliver Queen, Diggle, and Bloodwork in focus roles. But another character that is also coming back that initially most just assumed would just play a part in the episode and return as a final season gesture and moment and stuff is that of Wally West, aka Kid Flash. Now, the last time we saw Wally was all the way back in season 9 when he came back around the time that I think it was the Speed Force was in flux and dying out, and it was sort of on a ticking time bomb as to when it would go, or ticking time clock as to when it would eventually expire. With us seeing that Wally had sort of become more of a free soul, if you want to put it, but also more in tune with the Speed Force and sort of able to do things that Barry wasn't able to as well. But since that point, in season 6, Wally has been out of town, out of the loop, and it has been said that his return in this 9th episode of this 9th and final season will be an important role and actually be the emotional core or heart of this episode, which I think surprised many, including myself. When I heard this, I was like, what? What does that mean? Because this was said, or when this was said, it was confusing due to the fact that we're having Oliver Queen returning in this episode as well, and you'd think the relationship between Barry and Oliver would be that emotional core, but apparently it's Wally. So of course, when that was said, I was very curious as to how that would play out, but thanks to the trailer, the trailer that we got for episode 9 that came out last week sometime roughly, we now have a much better idea on not only what's happening in this episode, but more specifically what's going on with Wally and sort of what goes wrong in this episode and how certain villainous and darker aspects are able to latch on to Wally and what's been happening to him. Now, one of the big things is that throughout the trailer for episode 9, not only is Crisis, or Crisis on Infinite Earths brought up, but at multiple times so is the former multiverse as well as the new one that was made to replace it at the end of Crisis, which leading into this episode was of course known by us, the audience, but not any of the characters like Barry and all that. Oliver, aka the Spectre, was really the only character that knew about it, so it's coming back into play in some way in this episode. Now, I don't think it's going to be a major player. I've seen people saying, it's we're going to travel the multiverse. No, do not expect that in the slightest. I do not expect that happening at all. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a thing, but it's still going to be a thing. I think it might be a catalyst as to why certain things are happening throughout the episode to various characters, or what's at least spurring or motivating certain people to do certain things, or it might give some sort of backing. So, as I said, I don't think we're going to travel through the multiverse or see what's happening on Earth 2 or Earth 4 or something like that, but it's going to be involved in some way, shape, or form. Now, one of the things that I think might be happening in this episode in some way potentially is Wally seeing his past, pre-crisis life or aspects of the multiverse that were destroyed that he went through and that we saw maybe in seasons 2, 3 and whatever, but just aren't there anymore in this post-crisis timeline, but he can see them. It's sort of like a traumatic vision or traumatic flashback. We met Wally soon after Crisis happened back in season 6. It was 4 or 5 episodes? Maybe in that halfway between end of Crisis and the end of season 6, somewhere around that point. He helped Barry take on the post-Crisis Turtle, for example. But there wasn't much focus on that whole post-crisis stuff really at that point and how it was affecting Wally. They sort of dealt with that in the episodes following Crisis with Team Flash, but nothing with characters really showing up after, outside of maybe there's a slight change. Oh, they have a different power, or this person didn't die in their past. Something like that. They didn't really dive too deep into it with Wally at all. But now there's been, 3 years really since that? That is highlighted in the trailer with it being about 3 years since Oliver died. That's brought up. And of course, that happened in Crisis. So what has Wally gone through, not only gone through, I guess, in the present day since that season 6 meeting, but what has he been reliving in his dreams, or I guess nightmares, and just visions and all that? If he is seeing this past pre-crisis life, he'd be seeing people that he doesn't recognize but has an emotional connection to. And this might tie into something that we saw in the trailer briefly, and I guess if you pause it, you get a better view of it, but you also don't get a massive view of it in the trailer as well. It's sort of skimmed over, or it's quick shots and stuff like that. And that is the drawings on the wall. So I'm going to assume that this is Wally's apartment. Wherever he's living, this is Wally's apartment. And because it just seems like that's where Wally is. Like Wally's the one sitting at the desk here. Bloodwork is in that room with him, but Bloodwork's sort of like just in the middle. Bloodwork's not acting as if he owns that apartment. So I'm assuming it's Wally. There's like cameras and stuff in the background, and I think like Wally was traveling the world, so he was taking photos and stuff like that most likely. But yeah, we can see these drawings on the wall. Now, none of them look, or like not all of them look that identifiable. But then again, there's not the most clear and best shots of them in this trailer. But one of them sort of looks like the breakup box that Jesse Quick sent Wally in season 4, I think it was. I think it was beginning of season 4, because I think it was before he went to Legends. So I think it was in season 4, towards the beginning roughly. So one of them sort of looks like that. So I'm wondering if that's an example of one of these visions that Wally is having. He's having these dreams and he's waking up and sketching what he remembers from them, something along those lines. And maybe it's Wally trying to piece together certain things. So Wally might be thinking that he's like losing his mind or something. And then, you know, this leads into what Bloodwork is doing where he's targeting Wally. Like throughout the trailer, it's being suggested that like Bloodwork's making Barry the target and then trying to like, you know, infiltrate Wally's mind and get him into the dark side, if you want to put it. So it makes him into the dark Kid Flash, like we saw with Barry back in season 6, funnily enough, with the dark with the dark Flash that Barry became when, you know, Bloodwork broke him, if you want to put it. So he could get Bloodwork pretty much saying like, this person is dead, this person is dead, this person doesn't exist here anymore because of what Barry did and this whole thing. Now, in regards to how Bloodwork would know specifics and everything like that, if he's able to crack into Wally's head, then he would know. Like he would know what Wally's seeing and traumatic things. Like we saw Bloodwork do that with Barry back into season 6. So if Bloodwork's able to crack Wally, then it's fine. I don't know if he could have done this beforehand because we also don't have the context of how long Bloodwork has been out of Argus for. So we don't know if it's been a week, a couple of months. If it's been a couple of months, he might have been able to literally just maybe like borderline stalk Wally and get into his head, or just some other things like that. Like we don't know exactly how long Bloodwork's been out and what he's been doing leading up to this moment. Obviously, I'm sure we'll find out in the episode at some point, but based off this moment before heading into the episode, we don't have that. So it's hard to really know what the lead up is in regards to him targeting Wally and stuff like that and how exactly he would know certain things. But it just feels like that off the trailer. That's what Bloodwork is trying to do. Now, obviously, as I said before, with the multiverse and crisis stuff, this would lead into it being a minor player, but also it being a catalyst for what happens, but then also not being a major player come the end of it. Because I think once we get past this point, I don't think if the multiverse stuff would really play into it too much outside of being a solution in regards to, like, it's not Barry's fault that these people are dead and everything like that. But of course, as we know in the trailer, you know, Wally does crack. We see him as like the dark Kid Flash, if you want to put it, where he has like the black teeth and like all the like almost like a gooey, like I don't know, like a possessed sort of infected person. We also see those Argus soldiers and everything like that. So Wally does break. But it's more interesting to see like what exactly makes him break and also what makes him come back as well, because we also know he's going to be there as normal Kid Flash by the end of the episode as well. So how does Wally reel him back in? And this might lead into potentially some other multiverse stuff, which once again doesn't make it a major player, but just has it play into the storyline in some way. And that could be Oliver or, you know, the Spectre confirming what's out there in the multiverse to bring Wally back in. So he might say, okay, it's Earth 2 isn't there like it was, but he might confirm that like the Jesse, or like roughly pretty much the same Jesse that Wally would have known and that has had pretty much the same life for the most part, is a part of this new multiverse, but is on like Earth 5 or Earth 420 or something like that. That's where Jesse is. And Wally can be happy that version of Jesse is still alive. Like maybe obviously they wouldn't have interacted, but that version is still alive and breathing and just changed around because of this new multiverse thing. So that might be a way to bring Wally back in some way, shape or form, without really like diving too deep into the multiverse stuff, because I just don't think that's going to happen. It just might play a part. But though there has been this like frustration that Wally hasn't shown up, because obviously they tried to get him in season 7 and it couldn't work. And I think season 8, they didn't even really try because I think Keenan was just booked out. He was just like busy. They couldn't get him in. So season 7, they tried, but I think it's almost like a silver lining with him not being able to show up in season 7 that there has been this gap. So we can just, they can make it out. We don't know what they're going to do in the episode but they can make it out that like since that point in season 6, or maybe even some minor meetings after that, there's just been like this massive gap in time where Wally hasn't really played a part in it, and he's been on his own, and he's been stewing in these thoughts, and he has been, you know, experiencing all this, you know, visions and nightmares and trauma, if you want to put like almost like a PTSD thing from Crisis that he personally didn't even experience because he didn't show up. Remember, he wasn't even in Crisis. So they could actually allow that to like stew there over all those years, and it builds up to this episode, and we could sort of be like, okay, well that makes sense. Because we know that he's been on his own. We know that he's been, you know, doing all this stuff. So that could be a decent setup, depending on how it's executed in the episode. But, you know, it was said from the get-go when it was announced that Wally was coming back, that he was going to be the emotional core and heart of the episode. So it's not like it's being made up now after the trailers come out. It was said long before that. It was done like as they were about to film the episode. So I'm excited to see what they do. Trust me, if you have those expectations for some reason that we're going to be traveling through the multiverse or something, or like going back to the events of Crisis because it's mentioned in the trailer, please drop those because it's not going to happen. But I think the multiverse will still play a part in regards to at least setting up the story, because that's what the trailer definitely suggests. So drop those ridiculous expectations and sort of like lean into these more realistic ones, which actually sound like it could be a pretty good story. I'm very intrigued to see how it all connects, and then how Oliver can like strictly plays into it and everything like that. Because as people brought up and we brought up in videos, the Spectre will come out to play, if you want to put it, if the multiverse is at threat. So what's happening here? The multiverse potentially at threat, especially if Bloodwork can control a goddamn speedster. So yeah, the Spectre's going to come out to play to try and protect that. So that might be what's happening here. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on this. You're looking forward to Kid Flash being back in this, you know, potential, you know, Crisis or multiverse, like seeded story, if you want to put it. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.